Good afternoon or good morning, everybody. I'm really glad you could all join us again this week. It is Thursday, September 26th. It's 1 p.m. Eastern time, and we have got the infamous freight market roundup on deck for you all today. So, apologies. Just got something in my eye right in the beginning. If this is your first time joining the show, welcome. This is part of our weekly Ship Show series. We're on live every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern. My name is Jason Brand. I'm the Director of Outreach and Partner Development here at Supply Chain Solutions. So if you haven't heard of us before, we call ourselves SCS, just to add to the list of acronyms in our industry. But SCS, Supply Chain Solutions. So we are a full-service supply chain management transportation provider. We've been around since 2001. We actually started as a consulting agency, and we had some really fun solutions to some pretty large and well-known companies here locally in Michigan. And from there, we kind of branched out from the needs that those customers required. We soon had a domestic department. We soon had an inventory management department, started having our own warehousing spaces. And now we're literally at the point where we're shipping between more than 150 countries yearly. And we handle every single link of the chain. We purchased a customs brokerage, and we have the original owner and more with us as well today. It's been quite a journey. It's been quite a fun journey. And it's been really awesome to kind of come in with that consulting approach and solve problems with a very holistic way. So if you haven't worked with us in the past, it's a great time to start now. We are, as I've been mentioning lately, it's quite a year of rebuilding for many supply chain management companies, but also for carriers in general. The market's really, really shifting. And it's a good time to take a look at what you're doing and make sure it makes sense going forward, because there are some stakes getting put in the ground by some of these carriers that will definitely determine the winners and the losers when it comes to shipping going forward. And it's more important than ever, quite frankly. But that was a whole tangent. I apologize. Let's get back to it. So I mentioned this is our freight market roundup. Now, if you haven't heard this before, you're like, well, what's that mean? So it's a broad stroke of what's happening in the shipping market. What we like to do first is run through exactly what our customers are paying. That generally speaking, it's either this same week or the week prior, depending on the lane or depending specifically on if we're talking about ocean or air. So we run through ocean and air, what's happening in the major shipping lanes with our customers. And then we run through some of the current events that are affecting our teams or things that our customers are like, hey, what do I have to do about this? A little bit worried about this. So we try to bring those up here so we can kind of get this out to our general client list, but also to the general, audience. So everyone kind of knows what we're working on and what we're focused on. If this isn't a good time to listen to us, we're on all major platforms. You can find us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube as well. You can listen to us on the ride home or the ride to work. But let's get this show on the road. And before we dive into talking about some of the updates with the ILA, we're going to run through our regular freight market roundup first. So let's talk about lanes, and then we'll move into some of the current events. So starting off with a Trans-Pacific lane, or more specifically, think about the shipments that are coming out of Southeast Asia and China and then headed into the U.S. West Coast. So as of last weekend, our customers were paying an average of $5,800 per 40-foot container, or FEU. 40-foot equivalent unit. Now, despite this price going slightly down for the moment, you got to keep in mind a couple things. So we've got Golden Week coming up. That's going to be between October 1st and October 7th. And also, we're likely going to see a sharp increase in these rates if this strike does come to fruition, which we are 100% planning on it coming to fruition. Remember, if you were on the show last week, we said really there's one of two options. And this strike, this contract negotiation with the ILA, specifically the East and Gulf Coast ports, most of them, it's historic, quite frankly. It's very, very different from the norm. It is the first potential strike we've had, full strike, since 1977. This is a very big deal. And we've seen a total shift in ocean carrier attitudes before this strike. So, the likelihood of this happening, very high. But we basically said either it's going to happen because the carriers want to reset, or it's going to be an 11th hour deal. So at this point, let's continue. Anyway, let's continue on our Trans-Pacific. Let's keep the same origin. We're still talking about shipments coming out of Southeast Asia and China, but now those shipments are heading into the East Coast. So, talking about the few shippers we still have that are braving this lane with all the strike warnings. right now our average is coming in at right around 7,350 per FEU. And really the spot market is dipping really hard as well, for good reason, given what's going on in the market and just what's happening with capacity. Now, we still are having people though book on this lane despite the strike warnings. And a lot of them are planning on, hey, if I book now, maybe I'll be on the water when this whole thing is still is resolved, and maybe I'll make it through. We don't love that thought process. It is, if you're let's leave it at that as well. We don't love that thought process because it could get very, very hairy for you. And I hope you don't need those goods on a timeline. Let's put it that way. Now, let's move forward, diving right into our transatlantic lane with shipments headed out of European ports and headed into the U.S. East Coast. As of this week, Monday, our customers were paying an average of $2,300 per 40-foot equivalent unit, or FEU, on this lane. And as you'd expect, it is heading upwards. I want to keep going on this, so let's haul through Blitz Freight Market Roundup. Quick shift over to China and Southeast Asia. We're still talking about shipments leaving this origin. Now we're headed into those European ports. Now, I used to refer to this lane as the Suez Canal lane, but given everything that's going on, really, we got to kind of call it what it is, from origin and destination point. So at the beginning of this week, the price for our most recent shipments were $4,600 per FEU. And that was astonishing, quite frankly. This lane is plummeting down in cost. Literally just 2 weeks ago, our customers were paying $6,200 for the same shipment, same route as well. So keep in mind, this is occurring. Honestly, it kind of caught me by surprise, quite frankly. So keep your eyes on that. Now, I want to quick talk about air, and then I want to talk about what's going on, because we got a few major things we need to cover, and we want to keep this nice, clean, and short. So talking about the air market, if you are shipping between Southeast Asia and the US, as of last week, our customers saw an average cost of $591 a kilo. That's across all OD pairs, and a low coming in all the way down to $522 a kilo when you're shipping into LAX. The high was $645 a kilo when shipping into JFK. Now, I want to give you a little word of caution here. This is actually, I think that's the lowest we're going to see those rates in for a little while. We're already seeing these prices increase. If you picked up the phone and called us right now, they'd already be a little bit higher. Obviously, with the strike on the line, these are going to skyrocket in price. But quite frankly, there's not too much room for them to skyrocket because they've been stuck in kind of a perma peak season this year. But still, this is lower than it's been for the past 6 months on average. So keep that in mind. If you do need to airship in the next couple of weeks, it is a good time to try right now or wait it out. So two things right there. Now, I've got to switch into kind of the things going on. We've got some very specific updates for you. Let's talk about the things that our customers are reaching out to us worried about or that we're planning around. And first and foremost, we have Hurricane Helene. And as of last night, it was classified as a potentially catastrophic Category 2 storm, which is expected to intensify all the way up to a potentially Category 4 before hitting Florida later today, if not Friday morning. So far, it has prompted a series of port closures. We've got evacuations as well and emergency measures. So when you look at Florida specifically, the port closures we're seeing are in Tampa Bay, Canaveral. I messed that name up so bad. Fernandina, Jacksonville. We've got Key West, Fort Myers, Manatee, Sarasota, Panama City, and St. Petersburg. All of those are closed. A few other ports are staying open. They do have restrictions. We've got in Florida, Pensacola. But then if you move up to Alabama, you've got Mobile, and in Georgia, we've got Brunswick and Savannah. Currently, we've got Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who has declared a state of emergency for 61 counties. FEMA has approved DeSantis's pre-landfall disaster declarations. And currently, we've got 12 of those counties, actually technically more than 12, under a mandatory evacuation. Now, the Florida Department of Transportation, they've currently waived truck driver requirements for hauling emergency supplies, and all international flights out of Tampa are canceled today, and we're expecting them to be canceled tomorrow as well. Now, Hurricane Helene could not have picked a trickier time for these ports, quite frankly, because most of these ports the past month have been working on a contingency plan given the stalemate that's happened in the ILA longshoreman negotiations. And just as a reminder, just a quick review if you are just tuning into what's going on here. So we've got several U.S. ports on the east and Gulf coasts. They're preparing for what is highly likely, if not guaranteed at this point, to be a dock workers strike that could begin as soon as October 1st. So most of these ports have been implementing plans such as extending terminal hours and also setting operational deadlines with the goal of hopefully, discouraging traffic and clearing out the ports as much as possible prior to any disruption that follows. So, pardon me, contingency plans wise, we've got the Port of Virginia. So Port of Virginia announced their cargo operations are going to be stopping on September 30th. Their last inbound train delivery is scheduled for 8 a.m. that day. Inbound truck gates, they're going to be closing at noon on September 30th. And when it comes to the port's ocean operations, they're all scheduled. They've got an all stop scheduled for 1 p.m. Vessels are going to be required to sail, and the last outbound train is going to also depart at that point. Motor carriers are going to require to be out of the facility no later than 1 p.m. And all container operations will be halting 6 p.m. that same day. If you've got a reefer unit, it will remain plugged in, but they're making this very clear. It will not be monitored. And as a little bit of, good grace, good faith, there's going to be no demurrage charges that will apply to the shippers during the strike. Now let's move over to the Port of New Orleans. Port of New Orleans, they added Saturday hours on September 28th. It's going to be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. They've got a 1 hour break scheduled in there, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Vessel operations at the terminal will be stopping at noon on September 30th, with rail and gate operations ceasing at 4 p.m. on that same day. Import reefers have to be out by 4 p.m. on September 30th. And if you've got an export reefer, your deadline is actually tomorrow. So September 27th, it's got to be dealt with by 4 p.m. Let's go over to Jacksonville. Jacksonville, the strike is expected to impact 1/3 of their business. 2/3 of the business, including Puerto Rico, is going to continue normally. You've got 172 employees that are not ILA members, so they are going to continue working. And it does seem like their gates and administration functions will remain open to this point. Port of Mobile is just monitoring at this point the potential impacts. So that's kind of our breakdown. It is critical that if you are shipping into this port, or if you find yourself with a container stuck in this port, I think a really good quote, and it's kind of a good rule of thumb for the impact of the strike. Every day we're going to be in strike is likely going to transfer over to 1 week longer it's going to take to recover those containers. So 5 days, 5 weeks. So keep that in mind. I hope you guys are prepared. I hope you guys have been planning. If you haven't, you got to get on the phone today with us or your logistics team and make sure you have at least an idea of what your contingency plan is. So everyone stay safe out there, and we're going to talk to you guys next week. Thank you so much for joining.